This is the 21.5 Show.
You're on 121.5, the emergency frequency.
Whether you're a professional pilot or want to be one, you're in the right place.
Let's get started.
Join professional aviators Dylan and Max as they talk their experience in the airlines, business aviation, and more.
Life is good.
Industry experts, unique stories, and plenty of fun. This is the 21.5 Show.
Here we go.
It has been a minute, but we are back. The 21.5 Show. It's a show made by two busy professional pilots for all of our friends and colleagues and pilots out there. Welcome back.
We're back, baby. Coming to you live from Savannah, Georgia, long-term training. I'm losing it.
I used to fly for this owner who was also a pilot, and he always wanted to sit right seat in the jet and learn how to fly it. And we're like, yeah, no problem. You just got to go to simulator training. And he'd always just look at us and be like, guys, it'd be like going to prison. I can't do it. It's like prison. I kind of feel like, are you in the prison vibes there, or how's it going?
No, I mean, yeah, I had a dark night the other day. I was just like, when I was just over it, I'm just like, oh, I miss my wife and my kids. And she even came and visited me. Yeah. So I'm kind of a baby. Like, oh, I get it. Like, there's people that go on aircraft carriers in submarines for 6 months and have been in Afghanistan for a year that have families at home. So I admit fully that I'm being a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's nothing like, I don't know, going to.
I'm a pilot. I got to complain a little bit. That's just what we do. Sorry. I mean, sorry, not sorry.
You're in an apartment. You've got your co-pilot with you. You're in Savannah. Great weather. What about me?
It's perfect.
Like, what compared to going to Montreal in February? I don't feel too bad for you.
That's right. Where you had to change hotels so you get a heated parking garage. That's true. We've been hitting the rooftop scene quite aggressively. Yeah. The weather is beautiful. The cuisine in Savannah. I'm putting together a real bang-up destination guide for anybody else that gets stuck in long-term prison in Savannah.
Yeah, you and Christian are focused on the rooftop scene. I was focused on the garage scene, the heated garage scene. So it's a little bit different.
The parking garage scene. No, listen, we're making the best of it. I got over it, and I'm like, you know what, Christian? We just got to take this one day at a time, baby. We just got to get through each day, figure out how to stay occupied, and we're home before you know it. That's what I keep telling myself.
That's right. Let's take a step back and introduce ourselves. If you're new to the show, hello, my name is Dylan. I am a pilot in business aviation, currently recording from a Hilton property on the road, and I am joined by my colleague and co-host, Maxwell, who is in G280 Initial. What do you got for us today, Max? Give us the training update. What do you think of this airplane so far? Because it's funny, we're going to be flying like direct competitor aircraft.
I've determined this airplane is far superior to the Challenger for multiple reasons.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know. It actually does have a lot of cool stuff. Just for mid-size airplane to have auto brakes, standard auto throttles, gear doors that close after you extend the gear and then they close. So it's all like just stuff like that. It's a cool airplane and it is very powerful. You've heard like the power to weight ratio. It does have the highest power to weight ratio of any Gulfstream airplane. And if it rips, like you cannot climb it and like level change it. Climb thrust. It would be very uncomfortable for people.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does climb. It's pretty interesting.
Is this a DC or AC airplane?
All DC.
Isn't that nice?
It's great. Only AC thing in the airplane is an inverter for the plugs in the cabin. That's it.
I know. I used to think, oh, it's so cool to fly an AC airplane. Now I fly this DC airplane. I'm like, this is amazing.
This is so simple.
Yeah, this is great.
It's beautiful.
I love it.
Why don't we all do this? That's like,
can we just? Yeah, it is good. All right. Last question on training. Are you being a good partner and sharing the rental car driving duties, or does Christian have to drive all the time?
I mean, it's better than usual. I'd say it's like a 80-20 probably. It's not bad.
Actually, that's a good question for our listeners. For the folks, especially the 91 folks that fly with the same pilots all the time, or 135, I guess. If you're flying with the same pilots all the time, do you guys split the rental car duties on who drives? Do you alternate? Or does the captain always drives? The first officer always drives? I'd be curious to see. Let us know.
But if you're not driving, you do have responsibilities.
I'm not saying you don't.
As a passenger. Like you have to immediately get your file, to get the navigation going. You have responsibility for the playlist.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying
there's a lot going on. I'm not
saying that you're not doing anything in there. I'm just wondering.
I'm no slouch, Dylan.
I know. Just curious.
I do stuff. I do things.
I'm important. It's got auto brakes.
Nice.
Well, we'll have much more to talk about once training wraps up, I think, then we can...
Yeah, that's exactly. I can't wait to talk more about the G280 as soon as I'm done talking about the G280 for freaking 10 hours a day.
It'll be great. It seems like you've been cruising the internet lately a lot on your downtime since you're just kind of sitting around. You've sent me a lot more clips, I would say, in the last 2 weeks than I've ever, like Instagram videos, YouTube clips. I'm getting a lot of communication from you these days.
I'm a roommates with a millennial right now. So there's a lot of Instagramming going out, a lot of video clips and stand-up comedy things.
Well, you sent me this one clip from YouTube that I thought was pretty funny. Should we play it for the audience? Are you going to like live commentary as we go along here? What do you want to do?
Christian played this for me. I'd never heard this before. It's not like it's new or anything, so I'm sure much people heard it, but this was what went into my head. I would love when I'm at the airline and there's things are delayed and everybody's all huffy and pissed off, and like, oh, it's like the worst.
Yeah.
Because there's like a storm rolling through, which we have no control over. When I was in Houston, there was literally a microburst over the airport. Like it was unreal. And an airplane that had pushed off the gate was holding on the ramp waiting for this to blow through to depart, got struck by lightning on the ground. Like it was really bad. Plane shaking and everything. And people were just so upset that we weren't departing. It's like, dude, like what do you want from us? And then we played this video, and I would love to just play this in the PA for 3 minutes and just be like, folks, I know things are tough right now, and everybody's going to be late and, potentially missing their connection and everything else. There was this thing I listened to from Louis C.K. He really put it in perspective. So
people on planes are the worst. People on planes, they complain. They get off the plane, they come to your house, and they tell you about their whole flight experience. And they make it sound like it was a cattle car in Poland in the 40s. They just make it, that was the worst day of my life. I had to sit on the runway for 40 minutes. That's a story in this country. That's a hardship. That you had to sit on the runway. People will listen to that story. They'll stop doing the dishes and turn around and go, oh my God, really? For 40 minutes? That's awful.
40 minutes,
guys. You should sue
like going to
them.
prison.
I had to sit on the runway for 40 minutes. Oh my God, really? What happened then? Did you fly through the air like a bird? Incredibly? Did you soar into the clouds impossibly? Did you partake in the miracle of human flight? And then land softly on giant tires that you couldn't even conceive how they put air in them?
Actually, nitrogen.
How dare you?
Thanks, Dylan.
Bitching about flying. I had to pay for my sandwich. You're flying! You're sitting in a chair in the sky. You're like a Greek myth right now. But it doesn't go back very far, and I just sort of squishing my knees. The Wright brothers would kick us all right in the if they knew. If you could go back in time to Orville Wright and go, hey, dude, I had to sit on the runway for 40 minutes. And he'd be like, oh, well, let's not even bother then. Hey, Wendell, shut it down. They make you wait for a bit. That hardly seems worth it. There's always delays. That's what everybody complains about. There's always delays when I fly. Really? Delays. It's too slow. Air travel's too slow. New York to California in 6 hours. That used to take 30 years to do that. And a bunch of you would die on the way there. You get shot in the neck with an arrow and you go, oh, and fall down. And the other passengers would just bury you and put a stick there with your hat on it and keep walking. And all the old people would die. You'd be a whole different group of people by the time you got to California. Now you watch an Adam Sandler movie and you take a big runny dump and you're there.
So, anyway, I just think that would be funny to put things in perspective.
Yeah, that's good.
For angry airline passengers.
My favorite is what he's like with Orville and Wilbur. Yeah, we'll just, this isn't worth it.
Yeah, you know what? Good idea. We should just knock this off. They make you wait for 40 minutes on the runway.
Oh,
so. That used to take 30 years. That's
Good
funny.
stuff. Oldie but a goodie. Well, thank you for bringing that to our attention.
When people are pissed, just think back to the wise words of Louis C.K. It'll give you a smile.
Some comfort. Oh, man. I guess I should say we were at MBAA. That was great. We had some fun recording some interviews.
We were not.
I was saying we as like me and my friends, and we were all having a great time.
I was getting videos every morning when I woke up from you guys, having a great time, yelling my name. So that was actually really nice. I appreciate it. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Because the first thing I wanted to think of in the morning when I woke up to go to training was how much fun I was missing in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So,
well,
to you and the rest of my friends, thank you.
Yeah, we had a great time. So that's the good news. Base is what you make of it. I'll tell you what, we had a session on small flight department leadership that was unbelievable. I'm going to get this guest to come on the show. It was great. And if I can share this link, I'm going to with folks. I think you have to be an MBA member, but it was so good. And like, I kind of think...
What was so good? Like, give me like a takeaway. That was just...
Okay. Here was a great takeaway. The guy gets on there right away and he starts talking about it. He goes, you know what the hard part about managing people is? He goes, people suck. And he just kind of jumped into this. He got our attention right away. But he goes, listen, most people say, oh, we're a flight department. We're a family. We operate like a family. He goes, stop saying that. Every family you know is dysfunctional. You should not want to be a family. He goes, you guys, what you want to be is a band. Everybody in a band has a job to do. It's not the same job, but the music's only going to sound good when everyone does what they're supposed to do. And he goes, if you have somebody leave your band and someone new comes, guess what? It's going to sound a little bit different. The guy isn't going to play the drums exactly the same. And maybe the singer doesn't have the same voice. And he goes, that's fine. Things change. But anyways, he just had a lot of great analogies. He specializes in consulting for Solaris flight departments, and it was really good. So hopefully we'll be able to share his talk. If not, we're going to have him come on the show either way. Once you listen to him, you'll want him on call, and you'll be like, it was really
Christian
good.
is upset.
Yeah.
Max is not driving the rental car enough. I need to get to Savannah immediately and remedy this problem before things get out of control, before we get a breakdown in communication.
The music is not good from the band right now. So anyways, I had a great time. Loved seeing everybody there. My whole point of it was I was handing out stickers to a bunch of people. We have new stickers. We have a bunch of people that are sending in reviews.
Stickers?
It's amazing.
You were handing out Yeti cups?
Oh, yeah.
You were just slinging gear everywhere.
We were doing it. Anyways, my whole point was thank you for leaving reviews. We have new stickers. We have a TED sticker. If you haven't seen that, it's great.
I don't even have one of those yet.
I know. They're brand new. It's because you've been gone for 3 months. Anyways, leave us a review. We'll send you some of these new stickers. Let me tell you about two people, Jet Ranger 901 and Highway Hawk, who've both left us reviews. The first one says, I'm not even a pilot yet. Best aviation podcast, hands down. Dylan and Max, you guys have created something special. I appreciate the time and effort you put in for these episodes. Though I'm not a pilot yet, I take flight lessons as much as I can. You're already a pilot then, if you're taking lessons. I just can't solo. I am a commercial truck driver and will be making my career shift. I listen to old and new episodes from my whole roots and have almost listened to every episode. They are so informative and interesting with some great humor to an aviation nerd like myself. Keep up the great work. Blue skies, fellas. That's from Highway Hawk, which is a cool name. Now with the trucker pilot.
Thanks, Highway Hawk.
Yeah, I like that. Highway Hawk, send me your address and we'll get you some new stickers. You can just put them on the back of the truck. It'd be pretty sweet. Informative and witty aviation podcast, Jet Ranger 901 says, it's helping me get back into the flow of fixed-wing flying, currently a police helicopter pilot transitioning to the airlines. Thanks for the guidance.
Okra pilot.
Yes. Like that. Sounds like it's up north.
He might be up in these pots where I'm at.
That's right. Switching gears, since it's been so long since we've done a show, Max, of course, we've got lots to read in the mailbag. You know the mailbag is brought to you every single episode by Advanced Aircrew Academy. I saw them at NBAA, stopped by their booth. They were doing a poker run with some of the other vendors. It was really cool. I think the winner won like $5,000. It's pretty impressive. They went all out this year. So they're going to be coming on the show to talk about some new products soon. In the meantime, though, they did publish a blog on their website. We'll have a link in the show notes. It's called Clearing the Air, CPDLC. So you're going to have to learn about this here pretty soon.
What do you mean? You see PDLC all the time.
Yeah, but now for the G280, I'm saying. Probably going to have en route CPDLC, right?
I had not read this post yet. Was it about the en route CPDLC?
Yeah, there's like a path to opening it back up for new people to participate. So probably some good reading for both of us.
So good.
Yeah.
Can't wait till that implementation is complete.
Oh,
900
you were
years.
sitting in your chair at 40,000 feet flying through the air and you had to talk on the radio?
You had to talk on the radio, you poor thing.
Not anymore.
You just got a 40% raise and you had to answer a radio call?
Oh, wow. Oh, you need to text 3 miles in the sky?
You don't have time while the autopilot is flying the airplane to answer a radio call?
Well,
while you're experiencing the miracle of flight?
The auto,
miracle of human flight?
Your nose gear door is closed and your factory standard auto throttles are controlling your speed. You can't push to talk.
You're right. It's overrated.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Sorry I said anything.
Yeah. So anyways, good news. CPDLC domestic is coming back and folks will be eligible to rejoin.
Does the Challenger have CPDLC?
Yes, it does. Oh, you know what? Will you figure out in class and ask if there's a way to send in-air messages to each other? I think there is.
There is a menu option there. I don't know about that.
That'd be great. Wouldn't that be fun?
I don't know that the CPDLC knowledge runs real deep at, the training center. Like, I'm not sure that's...
Oh, you guys will figure that out on the way.
If you want to know what vertical mode, for a localizer approach, like that, I can get you an answer to that real quick. You want to talk about
Sounds good.
Real life stuff.
Minimum pavement width for a 180 turn.
You want to talk about ACN numbers? Yeah. And you want to talk about the...
Yeah, they got that on lock. That's always day one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I got a flashcard for that. But
All right.
You know what they gave us? They gave us flashcards that are playing cards, and they're actual playing cards. But they have like a question and answer. It's pretty cool. They're actually really cool.
That's cool because then you can shuffle them up and then kind of mix it. Okay.
Yeah, you can shuffle them. You can play drinking games with them. You can do all kinds of stuff.
Just picturing you and Christian in the condo.
Oh, yep. Nope. You got to take a sip.
Drink two.
One more wrong, and you got to do that shot of tequila.
You're coming in to your check ride. You're just a mess. Oh, we were studying all last night. Sorry.
I haven't just been sending you Instagram videos with this newfound free time of mine. But I've got other stuff going on.
Oh, gosh. All right. Well, I'm sure Advanced Aircrew Academy loved that ad read for their CPDLC blog post. But on we go, aircrewacademy.com to see all the offerings that they have. And let's open up the mailbag. Go ahead. You want to read the first one?
Gents, my goal most days is a jog in the environment which I've been blessed to exist. Sometimes the Greenway in Green Bay, sometimes my neighborhood. As of recent, I've employed 21.5 into my earbuds to help me get through it. I find your show insightful, largely unbiased, positive, and organized. Guests ranging from drug smugglers to astronauts help guys like me keep a finger on the pulse of the aviation industry. If knowledge is power, then I consider your pod a very important episode in my tool bag. Love the Jim Pope and James O'Neill episodes. I stumbled upon the Roger Reeves episodes this summer. It was the perfect entertainment for my trip to Oshkosh and my little hyperbipe. 5 hours of laughter was the perfect ingredient. Since then, I've perused the episodes list, picking out topics that interest me. I've decided to just start from the beginning and work my way up to the top, even listening to some episodes twice. I'll have to share them with aviation friends and family who've gotten rave reviews. Keep up the good work. We're all depending on you. Your friend Mike in North Carolina.
Great email. I think he said Tim Pope and you said Jim Pope.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
We just talked to Tim Pope literally this morning. Like it's
okay. I think you said Jim Pope.
Get out of here. Mike's going to be very happy with this episode.
Yeah. You're going to like it, Mike. Thank you for the email. Next one. I just listened to episode 106 and found it to be very informative. I'm about to start the accelerated pilot program at UND Phoenix. I'm coming in at the CFI level. I'm 50 and weighing some options of next steps after school. I've always wanted to fly light jets such as the Phenom 300 PC-24 Citation M2, but I also recently learned that Allegiant does not do overnight trips, and my interest has grown in their operation. Since Williams Gateway is 10 minutes away and the experience on larger aircraft in Part 121 seemingly can't hurt, right? I really like my family and prefer to spend as many nights in our home as possible and still be a pro pilot. Since we're all in the Phoenix area, I'd love to buy you a coffee or a brew sometime and pick your brains. Thanks for covering these topics. It helps us figure out what's best for us and our families. In the future, please keep up the good work. Okay.
A lot of options out there
A
right
lot of
now.
options, yeah.
I think all of those dreams are attainable.
100%.
You just have to decide which one
Yep. Absolutely. I think especially the light jet.
is your oyster.
Yeah, especially the light jet stuff. Be great. Can't go wrong.
That UND Phoenix pilot program is still one of the best I've heard of.
I agree. I know a lot of people that have
It's
come from
very
there.
efficient use of your funds and time.
Yeah. Sounds like you're making all the right decisions. You're going to have a lot of options out there once you get done.
What's next? Quickly.
Hey, gents, I just finished your recent podcast, episode 107, which had the flight advice at the end from the law enforcement pilot who was having airline FOMO. I am a former airline pilot who left and went to law enforcement and am now a law enforcement pilot at my agency. We had a pilot recently leaving our agency for the airlines, just like that anonymous listener was considering. I offered a lot of advice from my perspective to our guy that left and thought maybe I could help that listener considering I've done both. I have plenty of PIC turbine and total time to go back if wanted, I think, but I'm not considering it. I still get anxiety thinking about the 4 and 5 leg days at ExpressJet. Just happens that you guys read that schedule at the start of the show and my chest got all tight thinking about it. My contact info is included, so if I can help in any way, just let me know. Love your show. Very entertaining. And that's from Matt S.
Dude, what about the guy that one-upped him?
Scroll down.
Right. Oh, my God. This made my chest and other things tighten up. This was aggressive, dude. I mean...
Go ahead, read it.
So this guy writes in... The ExpressJet schedule was cute. Here was our schedule on a random Sunday in 1996 based in JST on the Jetstream 31, which, no autopilot, no lav, no cockpit door. That 4-leg day, he said, sounded pretty gentlemanly to me, Mike. And this was it. JST to Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh to HGR, which is like Hagerstown, I think.
Yeah.
Hagerstown, Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh, JST, JST, Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh, JST, JST, Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh, AOO, AOO, Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh, JST. Duty time, 3 hours and 14 minutes. Flight time, 7.4 hours. Report time was 9:55 a.m. Off-duty time was 23:09.
Oh, my God. So I'm counting. There's 6... Yeah, that's a 10
But
leg.
you're flying. You're
flying.
sitting in a chair in the air.
Flying. Just a quick 10-leg banger.
Covering that much ground would have taken 30 years.
I'm looking at the average leg times, too.
Dude. No autopilot?
They're like 40 minutes. Looks like most flights are about 40
You know what?
minutes. Wow.
I take back all that CPL DLC stuff I said before.
Oh, my God.
I'll never complain again.
Holy cow.
And then he probably had to commute.
It's commutable on both ends.
It's commutable.
The best part is it's a day trip, too. So it's just like, you got to drive to the airport and drive home. Oh, Mike. I don't miss those days. I used to do that. Remember, we used to fly the 10 legs in the King Air. I'll tell that story.
Yeah.
We're going to have Sean on and we'll talk about our King Air days another time.
Yeah, I hope so.
That is going to do it for the mailbag here, leaving us all in awe, Mike. If you want,
Mike just walked up on the stage, dropped the mic, and left.
And he just left.
And that was that. I love that he has this. Like, still.
somehow. In like
1996, dude. That's how traumatized he is.
he probably carries it in his hat, like, at the airline.
Well, him and his therapist have to review it every Wednesday at 2 o'clock.
I feel like he probably, how they have the hats with the little thing you can slide a picture in or whatever. He probably carries that, and then as soon as his first officer starts complaining, he just pulls this thing out like all the time.
Yeah, he goes, here you go.
There you go.
The therapist, Mike, we've talked about this.
Yeah.
The duty laws have changed since 1996. Okay, this is not going to happen again. It's literally illegal. But what if...
The 10-leg day isn't real. It can't
Mike.
hurt you.
Look at me. It's not coming back. It's not.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Mike. If you would like to be featured and one-up Mike somehow, if that's possible, you can shoot us an email, info@215podcast.com, and we will gladly read your email live on the air. I guess we should just do that. Who had the worst day? Send us your worst airline day possible. We have a good little contest. We'll give something good to the winner.
Should we just have a battle of the schedules, the worst and the best?
Now, can it be one day or could it be a trip?
I think what it is it needs to be categories. So your best and your worst, like singular trip, and then also like a month.
Yeah, see, because you could go a lot of ways. Okay, we're going to do worst day, worst trip, worst month. We'll have a winner in each category.
Let's not complicate
Okay.
things. Let's not put limits on
Aviation.
Let's just wait till see what someone
Okay.
comes. I hope somebody from like Aeroflot in 1985 comes. Like, look at this.
We never stopped. We didn't even turn the engine off.
This was in the Tupolev 154.
That's great.
Petropavlovsk to Irkutsk to Petropavlovsk.
And then those runways, too, were just like cement blocks just stitched together.
Yeah, they're super uneven.
Oh,
Love
God. All right. Well, that's going to do it for the mailbag. Info at 215podcast.com. If you'd like to be featured and brag about your terrible schedule, we'll be happy to read your email live on the air. Coming up next, Max, a good check-in with our buddy Tim Pope. Lots to discuss because a lot of pilots we know getting a retro check here pretty soon. And Tim's going to help figure out what we should do with that lump sum money.
Tim fills a different need in the professional pilot community.
Yeah. Should we quickly explain what a retro check is before we jump into this, just in case anyone doesn't know?
Yeah, we should. A retro check is short for retroactive pay, which would mean your contract that you're operating in was up. In some of us, it was in 2020. And now you've been operating under this old contract that's expired from whenever that expiration date was till now, until the ratification of your new agreement. So then you're owed some sort of back pay because now that contract has expired and now you should have been working under the rules of this new contract. That back pay is also negotiated. You would think it would be, all the pilots are like, yeah, well, it should be just full, whatever the new pay rate is times how many hours we worked and, and the 401k contribution and everything else. But in reality, that's oftentimes not exactly how it works. And it's negotiated, but it's true. I mean, there is some money owed there, but that's another part of the whole negotiation. So
yeah,
when something's ratified in that agreement, the retro pay is calculated however they agree to, and then everybody gets paid out for all of that money they should have made over all that time. So it's a lump sum.
Usually a lump sum, 1 or 2 payments. So
yeah, or 1 or 2 payments or whatever. But
that's what we're talking about for anyone that doesn't know. Again, this is for airline union negotiated contracts. So not uncommon to hear this term retro check. So good time to have a boat dealership in Dallas. All right, here's our conversation with Tim. Max, we are delighted to welcome back our good friend Timothy P. Pope rejoining us. Tim, a lot going on in the airline world, especially with these pilot contracts. Retro bonuses are starting to pop up. Some pilots new to the industry might not even know what that is, but a windfall is arriving for certain folks. Can you explain a little bit about what
the boat market is about to turn around?
What is a retro bonus, Tim?
The frivolous motorized toy market is going to get a little boost of liquidity.
Dallas, Atlanta.
I'm just kidding. Hopefully that's not true. I'm just kidding, right? That's not what you would recommend, right?
Charlotte, Lake Norman, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hey, guys, great to be back. With the retro pay, I'm calling 2023 the year of the contract, especially for the majors, right? So what we're seeing, Delta, American, United, is because they have extended negotiations so long, their pilots are being rewarded with back pay. It was going back from 2020. 2021, 2022, and even 2023, right? So there's a certain percentage of what you've earned, they'll pay you. And what we're seeing is a lot of times it's coming in lump sums or in 2 parts, right? So some in 2023 and then some in 2024, depending on the carrier. And that can help from a tax perspective. But depending on how long you've been with the company, this could be, $5-6 grand, or it could be 65 to 70 grand.
I've never been able to receive something like this. I mean, is this just like a check comes in the mail? Just one big lump sum and then you've got to figure out what to do with
it's
it?
It's usually direct deposit at this point, Dylan.
Okay.
All the pilots shuffle it out to the mailbox.
The chief pilot's not just handing out cash at the jet bridge?
They mail a check, but it's made out to your spouse for some reason. So
Thank you for putting up with this.
It's so funny, dude. I flow with so many people that are like, yeah, it just depends on what that retro check is. You know what I'm going to do? They're like already planning on this retro check. And I'm like, dude, which is going to happen, I guess, but it's funny.
To answer your question, Dylan, yes, it's a direct deposit, right? That'll show up. And to your point, Max, right, typically when you start spending or planning to spend that money on your own, we call it counting your chickens before it hatches. Everybody knows the guy who's like, hey, I'm going to get this 20 grand. They spent it 5 different ways, right?
Yeah.
But if you do that with your financial planner, it's called allocating your resources. And we love to allocate the resources, right? So in fact, with the retro pay, this is a great opportunity for folks to advance their goals on their financial plans, right? It's a tremendous opportunity. The low-hanging fruit, let's face it, most pilots do not have a sufficient emergency fund. Most Americans don't have a sufficient emergency fund. So with the retro pay, it's a good opportunity to kind of beefed that up. And unlike 5 years ago or 10 years ago, where it was really, really hard to watch your cash just sitting there doing nothing, I mean, you can get between 4 and 5% on your cash these days. You beef up your emergency fund. There's getting financially secure activities, and then there's staying financially secure activities. And the emergency fund kind of straddles both of those categories. So that's certainly one thing that I'd want folks to think about is my emergency fund where it should be before they start spending the rest of it.
And if you don't have one, this is a really good opportunity to start one. Because a lot of times I feel like people kind of beat around the bush and they can kind of delay it because they're going to start it with a small amount. But if you get a big chunk of money and you're like, oh, what should I do with this? That's a really good time to start that as your initial deposit to open an account. And I think the other thing too is when you look at that, and if you have somebody like Tim that will do the math for you on where that money will be in 10 or 15 or 20 years, then you can really think how much that boat's going to cost you, because it's not going to be the 50 grand up front. It's going to be what that 50 grand could be in 20 years. And that's Warren Buffett has said that a lot of times about when he thinks about expenses, is that he has a really hard time spending money because he thinks of the potential of that money, just not the actual spend of the money in the first place. It's funny, Tim, when you talk about putting the chicken before the egg, what immediately popped into my mind was Chevy Chase from Christmas Vacation, and he's waiting on this bonus to build his pool. And then he gets the Jelly of the Month club and he freaks out, and I can just see that.
That's right.
Tim, when you say emergency fund, what do you normally advise your clients? Is that like a month of expenses, a year? How do you figure that out?
That's a really good question. So a lot of times we're going to be looking at 6 months. That's the goal. But if you're a 2-pilot family, right, we might be looking at more. If you're an individual, or it depends on how many incomes coming into the family, right? If it's 1 income, we're going to want more. If it's 2 incomes with different industries, we might be able to do less. But particularly with pilots, because of the volatile nature of the industry, and right now it's good, it's great, so make your money. But we're looking at least 6 months worth. Also, we want access to cash. So what I call access to cash could be in a brokerage account, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be your sleepy money. It doesn't have to be your treasury bills or your cash equivalent, but we do want access to it without penalty, like, in a 401k, a Roth, or, IRA, that kind of thing.
There's something to be said. I mean, you can have too much money in a low interest bearing account that's your emergency fund, right? That's liquid. It's ready to access. There's a point where you can have too much money in there where it's not being as productive as it could be. You have too much of a cushion, whereas you could reallocate that somewhere else. I mean, you can never have too much money in the bank, but it's a matter of where you have that allocated, right?
100%. Absolutely. You can have too much. And particularly where we run into this is maybe a client might be nervous to use the capital markets and to invest long term, but they need that to be successful. But rather they have that nervous energy towards it. So instead we're piling up cash, right? So in that case, we're definitely going to want to shift some of that cash. We want the emergency fund, but we're going to shift some of that cash to be productive. But then on the flip side, I just had this conversation with somebody yesterday. The greater financial stability and position that you have, we can wink at things like holding on too much cash, because it's not really derailing you. And now you're to the position where you're like, hey, look, if I want to have a year's worth of cash, I can do that. I'm still going to be successful with my goals, right? And that's a fantastic place to be.
Sure. And there's another thing too, where you could have 6 months of cash that's ready, accessible. It's right now. You're not going to have any sort of detriment if you have to access in the short term. And then you could have cash that's somewhere else where you say, hey, I might need this in 6 months. And you tell Tim this, and then give him time to then, liquidate that at a favorable time and put it into the more liquid, so there's a lot of ways to skin that cat, I guess, is the point. But if you're not going to commit all of that money to saving, I think we can all agree, at least commit some of it, right? Let's be realistic. I mean, we as airline pilots, we work very hard, Tim, long hours, and it's very stressful. I mean, you can see it, checking emails constantly, staying up on the regulations, and trip trading, and figure out how to pick up a trip with a check airman that's going to get dropped for IOE, all kinds of things that we're very busy doing. So we need to be rewarded too.
That's my question, Tim. Like, okay, let's just a scenario. I've got a $20,000 retro check coming. Do you ever advise clients, you know what, set aside 1,000 of that and spend it? Get your wife something nice, do something with a little chunk of it. Does that seem to be more successful where you're like, yeah, you can use a tiny little bit of that to kind of scratch the itch?
Oh, yeah. Human behavior. You talk to my clients, they will tell you, I don't believe in this concept of like, there's some planners out there and it's all about like, oh, retirement. I call that deferring till I'm dead. Like, what? You have a lot of life to live between now and retirement. Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying to be negligent, but to your point, you want to eat the fruits of your labors now as well. So yes, so we talk about like, hey, some of this is going to be your play money. And I think we've talked about that on the show. And it goes back to having a plan, right? If I'm always that pilot who is like, hey man, I worked hard for this, I'm going to spend it. Your future may be looking a little dim. But then on the other side and we have clients where it's like every dollar I'm afraid to spend. I think going back to your point, Max, that you just talked about Warren Buffett. I just had a conversation with a couple. We've been working together for a couple of years and they said, hey, you know what? In the past, before I started planning, I could make large purchases more freely. Now that I understand the impact of a dollar and what it can become, I'm more hesitant. Which is interesting because they're in a great position to make those purchases if they want. But I said, well, I think what's happening is now you are comparing your purchase to what the money could do. And we got to find a balance. So to answer your question, you want to leave yourself some wiggle room, some playroom.
It's interesting as an airline pilot, when you fly with different people all the time, you're stuck next to somebody, in my case, most of the time, 3 days, and you're talking about whatever. And it's so funny, the range of people. And there are some people that I've flown with that are like ultra conservative. Like they have no expenses. They live in the same house for the last 25 years that they've owned outright. They drive a 2006 Honda Accord, all this stuff, and they don't do anything. And I'm like, where does all this money go? Like what? It's crazy. And then there's other people that obviously run it very hard and very thin and fast. And so just like anything in life, I suppose it's a balance, right, that you have to strike. But the thing that keeps me to have some discipline, I think, is that I have a standard of living that I like to live now. And I want that to continue into the future, right? I don't want it to be like a drop off a cliff when you're like, my income potential has gone down. And now if you like your lifestyle and you want to maintain that, then there has to be some thought that goes into that, right?
Yeah.
100%.
It's funny because I was just reading, this is bad. I was in some boat Facebook group the other day. They were talking about...
Tell us more about that.
I know. Someone wrote a post in there and they said, how are you guys affording these $150,000, surf boats? And like, am I the only person that thinks this is insane? And a lot of people responded. And there was one response in particular that I thought was interesting. And it was from somebody who goes, you know what? We thought we wanted that $150,000 surf boat. We ended up buying a used $25,000 boat. And he goes, because yeah, we could save up and get that boat in 10 years. He goes, but then we're not making memories now with our kids on the boat. And his point was, we did actually spend some money now because there is this time in our life where this small window where we've got kids around, we've got things that we want to do now. And so, we didn't buy the most expensive one, but we did do something. And I think that's kind of the perspective I've gained at my phase in life is like, this window is small. I am going to spend some of that money because there are memories that we want to make now. So I think it's exactly to echo what you're saying as well, Tim, but it's always a balance.
It just requires thought and planning. I think at the end of the day, that's it. You can't just shoot from the hip constantly and say, my kids are young. Yeah, I can spend some money.
Yeah.
Well, how much money? And that's the thing. It requires thought and discipline. And I think that's the challenge that we all have.
100%, Max. And I think the next point after the emergency fund that I wanted to make about these retro bonuses is use it to advance your goals, right? Like everybody has financial goals. And what we help clients do is get really clear, like what are the things? Most folks have competing financial goals, right? And, you have a limited resource of money, but you have all these things that you want to do. And so what I like to work with folks to do is say, hey, before that direct deposit hits, or in Dylan's case, before he goes out to the mailbox and picks up the check, right?
That's right. I got to endorse that thing.
We've got to figure out which of the goals that we're going to fund. And what it does is it gives the pilot time to think about it. It gives the spouse time to think about it. And I think most importantly, it takes the emotions off the table. And that going back to that human behavior part, right? Like, hey, if we can allocate these things before it hits, then I have a plan and I know this is going here, that's going there, this much we're going to spend and, go on vacation or join a boat club or whatever. It's about advancing your goals with the plan. I'd say the other part of the equation that these retro bonuses have been bringing up is the tax side of things.
Boo.
Okay. You're already getting a pay bump and then you're getting this lump sum. And it's unfortunate, right? But I think one of the things that we take clients through is trying to help them estimate how much total tax are you going to owe throughout the year? What's the net of that? And then what do we have to work with towards your goals? And this makes us look at things that can help us decrease the tax. So you guys know I've been on the show. I like to beat the table about Roth dollars and in a lot of cases, how that makes sense. Sometimes you crunch the numbers and it may not make sense depending on how large your retro bonus is or if you've taken an upgrade this year or so on. So pre-tax 401k, it's still not too late to look at that. Some states will give you a state income tax deduction. If you use their 529 plan, you make contributions there. So you can look at that. For pilots that are charitably inclined, but don't have a specific charity that they want to give to, you can use a donor advised fund. And so for public charities, that's up to 60% of your AGI. You can, boom, put the money into the donor advised fund, take the tax benefit now. And then you've got all the time in the world to think about which charity you want to give that to. And, another thing that you could explore, particularly if you do the donor advised fund, is, hey, can I prepay like this year and next year's property tax? And you can kind of stack up all these things to take an itemized deduction. This is money you're going to do anyway. You can take that itemized deduction this year and then the standard next year. So there's all these things like that you can do that is not including some of the other stuff like real estate if you're already involved in that. These areas that you could look at to kind of just sand down that tax bill. And everybody likes to throw a stink eye at the Schedule C guy, the self-employed guy, whenever the W-2 income gets too big. So
the other thing that I think an opportunity that pilots have that's pretty unique, and this isn't everybody certainly, but it is, I think I would say the majority at least, is that if you're bummed and you're like, oh, I really wanted that boat or whatever, the good news is you can work harder. And you can plan that too. You don't have to just plan the saving of your money. You can also plan the spending of your money. And you can say, look, so if you want this boat and you're like, well, I can't fund my emergency fund and buy the boat at the same time. Well, figure out how you can buy the boat. And maybe that means picking up an X amount of hours or trips or a day trip or a contract trip if you're a corporate pilot. And maybe you haven't put yourself out there on websites and things like that and promoted yourself to do that. And so a lot of people don't have that option. As a salaried employee somewhere, they can't just be like, oh, well, I can just work a little harder. If it's worth it to you to give up that time to get whatever you want, then work harder for it and don't sacrifice other things.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like literally the other day I had a conversation with a couple and the wife wants a boat. The husband wants an airplane and we're going through the planning and things like that. And at the end of the meeting, I was asking some questions and they said, hey, by the way, we joined a boat club. And I was very excited for them because I said, hey, you found a middle ground. Instead of buying the boat outright, you got access to it. And what they shared was they said, hey, we thought about it. We looked into it. We figured out that we didn't actually want to own the boat. We just wanted access to the boat, right?
Yeah, that's all of us, Tim. We all want access to a boat and without owning it.
That's right.
That's working out pretty good for you, Dylan, I'd say.
Just need the right friends.
That's right. So, but they're willing to pay the fee, right? And they feel good about it because of the planning that they've done. And they see that, hey, I can afford this. So go back to the tax piece that I was just talking about. So I want to make the disclosure, right? So we don't have EAs or CPAs in our practice. We will not file your taxes for you, but we will do tax planning, which is a lot of the things that we just talked about, figuring out which of these strategies apply to you and how that can help lower your overall tax bracket. So according to an Intuit study, so the makers of TurboTax, 80% of tax preparers, 80% do not offer tax planning services. They want to see you once a year, upload your docs, crunch your numbers, here you go. 80%. So chances are you're working with one of those people. So the tax planning is looking forward, figuring out which of these scenarios could apply, and then going to that tax preparer and say, hey, we want to explore A, B, and C. We've already crunched our preliminary numbers. they do theirs and it reduced, right? So I think that's important.
Well said. Anything else on the retro pay bonuses? Tim, are you announcing the Timothy P. Pope Boat Club? Is that what this is? This the real reason for this appearance?
I am not announcing
specifically
the boat
for
club.
your clients. Okay,
I'm not announcing the vote club. Maybe in the future, with something that I've seen folks run into with the retro pay. It says we're with a client. We were looking at the retro pay. We calculated it. All right, we could expect 65, 70 grand. This is great because we're going to advance these goals, right? And it was really going to push it forward. Captain, major airline, been there for a while, but like a lot of folks, right? Hey, sometimes it feels light on cash, right? You hear that all the time. So I'm asking for the documents. We're doing the planning. I get the pay stub so we can estimate, hey, what's been withheld? What's going to be the total impact here? And what's going to be the net? And I'm looking at the documents and I'm triple checking my work. And I'm like, you know what? And I reach out and I'm like, hey, this is like September, by the way. You have like no taxes withheld. I figuratively fell out of my chair. I'm like, what? And they're like, oh yeah, I did that like early in the year. They wanted some cash. So they went in and tinkered with the withholding, thinking it would only be 1 or 2 pay periods. It never reset. So all of a sudden, the retro bonus just evaporated. Not only that, and I said, that was like 70 grand, but we're still not done recouping and figuring out what we're going to pay in tax. Now, we looked at everything to do to lower that, and there were some additional things that I won't mention here, but remember those get financially secure and stay financially secure opportunities. Well, what happened is we couldn't go to plan B because it would introduce too much risk in the financial profile at this time. If it was 5 years from now and we've done all the things, we're set up and ready to go. So that's just a cautionary tale. I love active participants, But if you're going to tinker, know what you're doing so you don't have any nasty surprises at the end.
I hadn't heard that one before.
that's a tough one. You know what probably happened? He was flying with somebody and then, oh yeah, this is what I do, and then you hear about it. That's probably the biggest.
Did you check his 401k, make sure he didn't put it all in a gold fund Tim?
Ooh, gee, Christmas.
He saw Peter Schiff and he's like,
Man, the GLD ETF, that's probably aren't even options for most 401k. Hey, Tim, I know we've talked about this in the past, but I'm in this situation personally, so I'm just going to ask you for free advice here. For folks that are getting a new job this year, they have that old 401k at their last employer. In a nutshell, I know every situation's different. There's a million different things to consider. Should you just roll that to Vanguard, roll it to your new 401k? Is there a kind of an easy rule of thumb for that?
I was going to bring it up when we talk about military transition considerations. We'll talk about it now.
There you go.
The short answer is it depends. What I would not want to see you do is roll your pre-tax dollars into an IRA because it would shut the backdoor Roth opportunity. So and at some point, you may want to walk through that backdoor. You're a professional, you're going to want to walk through it, right? Because you're going to make too much, contribute directly to the Roth. So what I like to see folks do is, hey, if we can roll over just the Roth dollars, because in a lot of cases, there is more flexibility and more options, let's do that. The pre-tax dollars, if the new 401 we're looking at is the new 401k better than the old 401k, we're making that analysis to figure out where those dollars are going to sit. Now, I will say this. I've worked with folks that for some reason or another had to roll money over and it's already sitting somewhere. And so in that case, okay, we might add to it. But if you still have the backdoor Roth opportunity available to you, we don't want to shut it. We don't want you to shut it. If Congress shuts it, that's another thing. We don't want you to shut it.
Okay. You teased military transition as a topic. This is always a hot topic on the show. We have a lot of listeners that are always looking to make the jump. So what are you counseling right now with your military transition folks?
There's a few things. The top 3 things, right, that I'm thinking about is one, hey, if you're in the military, you go into a major, you're not making a pit stop at a regional or anything like that. Cash is your friend, especially if you've been in the military for a while. Typically, you're going to be earning more now than you will in first year pay, even after the pay adjustments. Cash is your friend. So if we know this, I'm a planner. What would you expect? I'm saying let's plan for it. So we're looking at our own cash flow, figuring out where we can repurpose and just build up a cash cushion so we can survive year 1. So that's number 1. 2, if you can structure your termination from the service to where you're double dipping, right? So you can keep getting paid from the military, but then also getting paid in training. Sometimes you can get a 3 or 4 month overlap with that. That is fantastic. So if you have control over that, that would be ideal. Dylan, to your point, what you just asked about, I hear this all the time. Hey, like, what should I do with my TSP? So that's going to be the military's version of their 401k. A lot of folks are out there. They like to hate on the TSP. I do not count myself as one of those number. With the TSP, typically it has fairly efficient investments inside of it. If you're going to roll anything out of it, we're going to want to roll the Roth portion. That it would sit then in a Roth IRA, but I'm okay with folks just leaving the TSP in there as well. Again, for that backdoor consideration. We don't want to mess that up if we don't have to. And then the last thing is TRICARE for life. That's the healthcare considerations. And for this one, it really depends on a number of things. It depends on the carrier that you're going to and what their healthcare looks like. If you're keeping TRICARE for life, it depends on your own service providers in your local area where you live and what that is going to look like. The downside of TRICARE for life is that you're not eligible for an HSA contribution. And so that shouldn't be the only consideration for ditching it or not ditching it, right? We should look at the premiums. We should look at the service providers, but that is one of the downsides for keeping it. So healthcare is one of those things to be looking at.
Right.
Well, Tim, I know I've gotten a lot of email on open enrollment lately from my place of employment. Any considerations there that you want to talk about since we're in that season?
It is just the season for open enrollment. So I've said this before. If an HSA makes sense for your family, think about that. We expect the contribution for families has gone up from $7,700 to $8,300 in 2024. And again, that is money that's going to go into a health account that you control. That is 100% yours. It's going to go in pre-tax. It's going to grow tax-free. And then when you eventually use it for health expenses, it's also going to come out tax-free. So you might think about it like a Roth IRA for health expenses. So that's number one.
Real quick, Tim, I think a lot of people don't realize, too, that money can be invested a lot of times, too. It's not just sitting there static. And then what's the deal, the HSA long-term? So if you end up choosing this and you don't use all your health expenses, and at the end of the road, when you're in retirement and your HSA all of a sudden is worth a substantial amount of money, what's the end of the road look like?
Yeah, I actually like to advise folks to, hey, if you can avoid using it now and let it grow and use it in retirement for your healthcare expenses. Fidelity does a study. A 65-year-old couple is going to spend in excess of like $300,000 on healthcare related expenses in retirement. So we expect that money to go to good use. You're not going to use that because maybe you work for United and the IRS says, yes, you can put money in your health arrangement account, right? If that's the case, then it essentially becomes an IRA. It'll come out. The taxes will be, you'll just owe, ordinary income. I wanted to beat the drum on today, though, with the open enrollment is, guys, look at your company's legal plan. If you don't have your estate plan documents done, get them done. 60% of Americans don't have them done, which means you probably don't have them done, right? If you have minor children, if you have special needs children, if you own property in multiple states, if you have assets outside of your 401k and retirement plans, if you've been divorced, if you're married, if this is a second marriage, right? If you've been the beneficiary of somebody leaving an unorganized mess behind, either get your stuff done. Elder care, a lot of these legal plans, they can do your will, they can do a living trust, they can do a living will, which is, your last wishes for your medical stuff. Not great to think about, but absolutely necessary. Guardians for your children. Elder care. So personally, my mother-in-law, who has Alzheimer's, moved in with us 4 months ago. We need help navigating this kind of stuff. So for elder care, and a lot of the legal plans that I'm seeing that the airline companies are offering has an elder care proponent to it. You can talk to somebody and help navigate this stuff. So with open enrollment, if you don't have your docs done, even my clients, hey, it's on our to-do list and it's been on there, right, for a little while. Get your stuff done. It's fairly cost effective. And then if you need something that is more robust, particularly if you're working with a planner, they can identify that and you can go outside the plan to get something. But in a lot of cases, the legal plans can work.
So through the benefit package, you're seeing that at most of the majors, they have something?
Correct.
That's good to know. I did not know that. I'm jealous for once. The 120 world.
So let's talk about the life insurance a bit. So shout out to American. They finally got something that's like respectable. They've got like a 10x increase in company provided life insurance with this contract round. So good for them. But I think open enrollment is a great time for folks to evaluate what their needs are in their family, to see if the company provided life insurance is sufficient. And then if it's not, to supplement that with either an individual policy or the ones that you pay for in open enrollment. The difference being the group term policies, we expect their premiums to rise as your age goes up, versus the individual, you can lock that in, lock in your coverage. So open enrollment's always a good time to look at that and then revisit your 401k. Next, did I upgrade this year? Did my spouse get a job? Did a job change? Stuff like that to figure out, hey, is this a year? Is it going to be Roth or is it going to be pre-tax? That's certainly not a set it and forget it.
Tim, with your clients, especially at the major airlines where there's, they have the different funds available, do you help advise them on allocations in those different funds as well?
Yes. Depends on what package you choose when you sign up for services. If it's a premium or above package, then we will help you build your 401k portfolio based off of what you have, or we might go into the self-directed brokerage account in your 401k plan, build it there so it aligns with all your other assets.
Good to know. Any other open enrollment? Should Max go with the full dental coverage for his kids this year or roll the dice?
Well, if they're like my kids, we're thinking about braces here soon. So check out your orthodontics coverage.
Yes. I've exercised my one-time $2,000 a year orthodontic benefit for 2 children at this point. So
I hit mine. I didn't realize, you get a lifetime allowance.
One shot.
My kid used it before he was 6. So I think I'm going to need some help, Tim. I think this could be trouble.
Dylan, if you just suspend the boat club for 6 months or a year, there you go. That's it.
I know.
What are we willing? What trade-offs are we willing to do?
I know. It's
in dreams.
I mean, listen, a lot of people with crooked teeth have been very successful in life. So I don't know. We're just going to have to look at that.
Yeah. Builds character in a man.
What a great deal being an orthodontist is. Ugh. Anything else from open enrollment stuff we should be aware of, Tim?
The last thing I'll say is if there's 2 working spouses, if you haven't done this already, take the time to compare the plans. Like sometimes one spouse's employer might be above and beyond your own, right? So take that time to just compare and contrast and leave nothing on the table.
You know what else is interesting that I learned? So sometimes your employer, or in my case, like my spouse's employer, if you elect not to enroll in their health insurance and benefits package, there's an alternate package that's designed for that there is a benefit that you still receive because you did not take advantage of the plan. So make sure you look at that too if you're deciding not to. Just because you're deciding not to take advantage of the plan, make sure there's not another plan that's designed to provide you a benefit in the event that you don't utilize their plan. So it's an awesome deal for us. So I'm glad we figured that out.
Well said. Tim, 2024 is shaping up to be an exciting year. I've caught wind of a project that you're working on. I don't know if we're ready to announce it yet, but I'd advise our folks to stay tuned. Is there anywhere that they can follow you now so that they can find out what all you're going to be up to next year?
Yeah, so just connect with me on LinkedIn. They've got some big news for 2024, and your listeners will be some of the first folks to know about it. We're excited about it in our practice, and I think it's going to do a lot of good. So thanks for mentioning that.
We will have Tim's LinkedIn in the show notes so that you can subscribe. And I enjoy following you all the time because you're always posting helpful advice, interesting articles, and occasionally some aviation photos. I remember seeing some pictures of you doing the classic $100 hamburger trip to go grab some barbecue. I think we talked about that last time.
Yeah.
You shot an instrument approach.
$100 brisket in the South.
Exactly.
That's right.
So, Tim, we always love to speak with you. Thank you so much for taking the time out to break things down in this crucial juncture. Are you leading any social media campaigns for people to announce what they do with their retro check or anything? Is there any sort of like a
polling or anything like that?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. That's what we should do, a poll on retro check spending.
Send that out to your listeners, and then I'd love to see what's going on. And I assure I will not judge anybody harshly.
Okay. We will do the judging. Okay.
I'll take care of the harsh judging, Tim. That's usually in my arena. So
Exactly. All right. His name is Timothy P. Pope. He is a certified financial planner, a fiduciary, and trusted counsel for professional pilots around the globe. All of his contact information will be in the show notes. Thanks for your time, Tim.
You're the man. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, guys.
We love having Tim on the show. He's always a wealth of knowledge. If you have not had a chance to talk to him, do it now. You can tell it's better off. Let the pros plan on what to do with the money. You focus on making the money out there in the sky.
Yeah, you do what
sitting
you
in a
do.
chair at 40,000 feet, and you're getting paid. Oh, and they're paying you for this privilege?
It's only mankind's greatest innovation ever.
And you need to be retroactively paid the money they gave you wasn't good enough before. You're doing 5 miracles every day.
You're sitting in a chair watching the world go by. There are people out there with real jobs, back-breaking jobs.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. If you want to get a hold of Tim, you know how to do it. Check the show notes. Up next, Max, flight advice. We've got a good one here. A local Arizona one, I think, will be fun to share with folks.
Another one.
Here we go. But before we jump into that, I got to share some flight advice with the listeners, and that is to protect yourself by visiting harveywatt.com. Check out all of the offerings that they have for professional pilots when it comes to insurance, especially insuring that medical certificate. If you lose that thing, the miracle of flight goes away, and that's not good. Let Harvey Watt advocate for you, guide you through protection and regaining of your medical. They're protecting professional pilots around the globe. Be one of them, harveywatt.com. All right. You want to read this flight advice, Max?
Yeah. Hello, Dylan and Max. Great show. Been listening for a couple years now and really enjoy the flight advice segments. I wanted to see if I could get my sanity checked. I'm currently a line check airman for a ULCC living in base where I want to live. I'm able to hold day trips with the occasional 1, maybe 2 overnights a month, which is what I like to do. I've got 2 kids and a wife at home and I've only been living in base for about a year. I can't imagine commuting again. My ULCC is the last in the cycle of new contracts and we are way behind everyone else in compensation right now, at least for now. There are 35 plus people jumping ship from my airline a month, with some of those being senior to me. It gives me pause when so many folks are leaving, especially senior to me. Am I crazy for staying? I live in Phoenix, where AA also has a base, but I know it would take a while to upgrade there, and even if I did, would I ever be able to hold day trips again? I just can't imagine ever having a better quality of life than I do right now. I'm not sure the extra money would be worth it for me. Thanks for the great content helping us make these decisions, Nick. Well, Nick, there's one thing to be said about being the last in the cycle of new contracts. You know where everyone else sits and everybody else that had one-upped each other. Sometimes patience is rewarded. And so certainly going to American would be a quality of life hit, right? And the thing about American, so I live in Phoenix. I wanted to live in Phoenix and I'm not willing to commute. So that pretty much narrows things down real quick of where to work. And at the time, for me, it was only Southwestern American. And the thing about American is that just because they have a base doesn't mean it aligns with the career progression there, because there's no wide bodies in Phoenix currently, and there never really has been. So I think that would be a pretty long shot to expect something like that. And if your natural career progression is going to drive you to commute to LA or somewhere else, which is going to further be a detriment to quality of life, if you're not that concerned about the money, and probably the money will come. You have an amendable contract, so you don't really know where it's going to be, but you know it's going to be better. And it doesn't sound like you're that upset about it right now. So
I mean, look, I think in general, we can probably agree that ULCC pilots are usually not going to get paid the same as majors, just in general, right? Like, I think you just have to accept that.
For now.
Yeah, but in general, though, if you were looking at the next 30 years, if you were just like, look, I think that's part of the thing is like, yeah, you're going to get a new contract and that's going to be great. But if I'm at a ULCC, I'm probably never going to have the highest pay rate. And that's the thing. Like, is that okay? That's probably question one. And then like what James says, well, do you want to retire with $7 million or do you want to retire with $5 million? Like, at what point is there a diminishing return on that money where if you're doing day trips in your home all the time with your kids and your wife and you've got a great schedule, it just seems like a diminishing return to make the jump to me.
Yeah, I agree.
What's going to change in your life with a little bit extra cash? I don't know. Everybody's situation is different. It's hard to paint a picture, but...
No, for sure. There's not a one-size-fits-all option here.
Yeah.
There just isn't. There never will be. But the thing is, I think the old adage is very true. The grass is not always greener on the other side. And that is true for some people and some people it's not, but we've had people that have left Southwest and then come back. And that happens all over in this great shuffle. People leave, think it's better, they come back and and they lose seniority in the process, but even still, somehow it's worth it to that person. And so, just be very careful what you wish for and what you think. As I've said before, one of my favorite quotes is, money is not the prime asset, time is.
100%.
And so you can't get that back. You can't buy more, no matter how much money you have. You have a finite amount of time, and that time that you do have with your kids is even more finite.
Yeah.
So if you can be around, be around. I don't think your life at the end of the day is going to change that much. Because the thing, too, that we've talked about previously is that money has a diminishing return as you get more of it.
Yep.
Doubling your income does not double your quality of life. And then tripling it is even less. The ratio is very inverted. So
well said.
that is all.
We will continue to field these types of questions. Happy to try and provide our perspective. But look, at the end of the day, your level of how much you suffer from FOMO, if it's really, really bumming you out, then that's something you got to take into account too, Thanks for the email, Nick.
Yep.
Let us know what you decide. Yeah.
Good luck.
Good luck. Best of luck. We've answered nothing.
We're more like therapists. We give you things to think about so you can make your own decision.
That's right.
Right? Isn't that what happens?
The answer is within inside you. Yeah. It's impossible for us to answer these types of questions. There's just so many details.
Yeah. You never have enough information, really, but...
So if you'd like some flight advice of your own, if you'd like should we change it to flight therapy?
We could. It seems more accurate, does it not?
Pilot therapy? I don't know. We'll have to workshop that one.
I mean, ever since James started dropping those quotes, the dog never thought it was going to catch the bus. We should make a talking James bobblehead.
That would be so much better than having him on the show.
Because he has such a great head shape for a bobblehead.
Perfect.
With like a turtleneck on, or like Woody from Toy Story, you pull a string on the back.
Just fires out a James quote.
The dog never thought it'd catch the bus.
Well, I like what did he say? You want to retire with 5 million or 7 million?
That could be another one.
Okay. Right. Enough of this. Yeah. If you want to be featured in flight advice, you can visit the website, 21podcast.com. We have an anonymous form you can fill out. And so you can keep your anonymity and still request a therapy session. Thanks for everyone that's written in recently. We've got a lot in the queue to clear out. All right. I think that is going to do it for this latest episode. Thanks, folks, for bearing with us. I know it's been our schedule's been a little lax recently. We've got a lot going on. So hopefully we can tighten things up once Max returns from training in the G280. It's a great airplane if you haven't heard. The thrust to weight ratio is incredible.
Just great. A lot of thrust.
Thanks to all of our sponsors who continually question when their contract is going to expire. Harvey Watt, Advanced Aircrew Academy, Timothy Pope, Veris Jet Sales, the Air Comp Calculator, all of our friends.
Everybody.
All of our friends in the 21.5 universe. We're looking forward.
The 21.5 family?
The 21.5 family. We're a family. Very dysfunctional. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another episode. But until then, remember,
flexibility is the key to air power. We'll see you next time.
The statements made in this show are our own opinions and do not reflect, nor were they under any direction from any of our employers.